Got another torch to look at today. It's the M64, which was sent in via JETBeam. This model is quite interesting because it is a longer range torch, 1200 meters throw. It's also a high output. They're rating it to 6800 lumens. We have a nice range of power levels on this, including an eco mode at 1.5 lumens. Quick unboxing now just to show you what's in the box, and we have the user manual and warranty card. 2 spare O-rings, the smaller one is for the base or the tail cap. And this is the included wrist strap, which is a bit different to their normal ones. It's sort of like paracord really, with the nylon core in the middle. They've included 2 rings too, and the larger one goes around the base or tail cap, and they've also given you a split ring. And we have a Type A to Type C cable that's also in the box. Size and weight, this is about what you'd expect for a torch that's running 2 21700 batteries and also is a longer range model. You'll notice the design is quite similar to the white JETBeam that I looked at. It's got that sort of chunky head with deep grooves on it. I think we call it a Franken-torch look. It's sort of bits and pieces put together, but I think it's interesting. The switch on this is metal and it also has rings around it, so it does have a pretty decent feel. There's a definite click when you hit that switch, very obvious click. They have quite a lot of flat edges on the handle, and I wondered if it would be comfortable to hold, and it is better than I thought it would be. It does have grooves in there as well, so you do have a reasonable amount of grip. And you'll note that the switch is also angled. That's quite comfortable. The only thing is you do sort of feel around for it in the dark. It's not obvious where it is. Might have put a bit of knurling or texturing on the handle just to give a bit of additional grip when it's wet. But overall, I think the design of the torch is quite good. Here's a look at the LED and reflector. As you can see, it's quite a deep reflector on this, hence we get quite a nice output. And I'll just unscrew the base or tail cap now just to show that to you. Quite a strong spring in there, you can see it's quite thick. They have greased up the threads, that's always good to see. And the charging on this is via the USB-C port directly on the batteries. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but there's no charging on the torch and some people might prefer that. I'll just unscrew the head now because you can take that off, and we have again another fairly thick spring there which is gold plated. Good finishing on this. I've always found the JETBeam to have good machining and clean finishing. There's the ring that you can put on. You might find it easier to take the O-ring off, but you don't have to take that off. And that ring does rotate freely around and it won't interfere with the water resistance. Or if you prefer, you could attach it to the head. There is a hole there. You could just clip it on directly to that. We've got the typical JETBeam grey finish to it. I think it's okay in terms of its visual appearance. There's your 4-stage battery indicator built into the switch. That LED stays on all the time whenever it's turned on. Quick look at the UI now. We do have a pretty nice UI on this torch. It's a single press on and off with a memory for the last level. When it's on, hold the switch in to cycle through 4 power levels. If you want to get directly to the moonlight mode, that 1.5 lumens output, just long press the switch when you're turning it on. Direct access to the turbo is also possible, a double press on the side switch. And if you want to use the strobe mode, triple press on that, hold it to cycle the 3 different strobe outputs that they have. To get to the lockout, it's a long press, around about 4 or 5 seconds, and you also do the long press to unlock it. If you want to switch between the stepped and stepless, the ramping mode, press the switch 4 times, and it will flash a couple of times to tell you that it's switched over. They also have a factory reset, just hit the switch 5 times to do that. I'm very happy with the UI overall. You've got your shortcuts there for the moonlight and the turbo and strobe. Very logical UI, easy to pick up, and you also have the lockout there if you need it. For me anyway, nothing to complain about with that side of the torch. Onto the charging, you can use C to C or A to C. Both of those work with the battery. but we only have one of those cables. We move on to the beam shots now. TH10R that has a mixed beam pattern. Nothing wrong with it, decent enough beam. As soon as we switch over to the M64, you'll see quite a big difference, as we would expect. Much more focus in the middle with the beam pattern, but it also has quite a warm tint to it as well. Once we start ramping up the power levels, you can see there's quite a good spill on this torch. Compared to some of the higher range models that I've looked at, this does have quite a decent spread and spill on the beam. I think you might find it quite useful as a general purpose torch, not just a long range one. I don't know if it is the rated power for the lumens, but it's certainly a pretty powerful torch. Have a look through the beam shots. I've done some different ones for you so you can have an idea of what you can expect with this model. And then I'll finish off at the end with a quick summary. Couple of thoughts now with the JETBeam. The most obvious disadvantage, I think, is the basic charging solution. I would have liked to have seen something a bit more refined from JETBeam. Possibly even just a split cable with the two Type-C ports. That way you could charge both cells at the same time. I'd also like to see a holster supplied. We don't get one in the box, just to make it a bit easier to carry, give it a bit of protection on the head. But I do like the beam pattern. It's not just long range, it has a good spread as well. I also like the fact you have a choice of the stepped and ramping modes. I've got another JETBeam torch that's come in to look at, so do stick around for that. If you've got any thoughts about this, be very interested to hear those, so do drop a comment down below.